30 minutes to pack your bags and get out, or every cop in this county will know you're a terrorist hiding in our neighborhood. That was the first thing I heard that morning. Vivian Blackthorn's voice, sharp as a whip, just cut right through my coffee in peace. Picture this, 7:23 a.m., and the president of the Cascade Heights HOA fuchsia suit pearls a stare that could freeze fire, standing in my living room, jabbing a French manicured finger at my front door like she's Moses with the tablets. Behind her, a whole lineup of cops, all waiting for her cue. Yeah, that happened. Let me back up a sec. Vivian had no idea who she was messing with. I'd barely put my maritime law textbook down before my phone buzzed right on schedule, Chief Morrison calling. Vivian just stood there, mouth opening and closing, looking like a fish caught out of water. And those 6 officers behind her, you could see it dawn on them slow as molasses that maybe they'd been fed a load of garbage about the so-called dangerous fugitive living in their perfect little lakefront world. You ever see somebody dig their own grave with nothing but arrogance? Hit that like button, because what happened next blew the doors off every HOA horror story you've ever heard. And before you ask, yeah, if you've got a neighborhood tyrant breathing down your neck, just know standing up for yourself can change everything. By the way, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments, because trust me, this kind of corruption isn't just in Cascade Heights. Now, 3 months before all this, I was Captain Sterling Hawthorne, U.S. Coast Guard Maritime Law Enforcement to be exact. 22 years chasing drug runners and pirates, tracking down international criminals, and learning one ugly truth: the real villains don't wear ski masks. They wear power suits, smile for the cameras, and hide behind titles like HOA president. After a classified bust went down, Uncle Sam handed me an early retirement, full honors, a pension, and weirdly enough, a property. See, the feds had seized this cartel's 4.2-acre estate right on Cascade Bay, a place so tangled in federal maritime law, nobody in their right mind wanted the legal headaches. Except, well, me. If there's one thing I knew, it's how to turn a regulation into armor. My office window looked over silver blue water pines that had been standing since the Titanic was still floating, and every sunrise brought a parade of fishing boats, gulls, and the hum of engines headed out to work. This place was no ordinary lakefront home. Reinforced seawalls, deep water slips for 80-foot vessels, and the crown jewel, a navigation beacon that had been shining since 1952. That beacon, by law, made this patch of land untouchable. Interfere with it, and you'd better bring a federal lawyer. The house itself. Let's just say, if oak beams salvaged from 19th century ships and panoramic windows mean anything to you, you'd get it. The former owner was a maritime lawyer who picked the spot for the same reason I did. Protection money can't buy. But it was the peace that sold me. After decades of federal service, I wanted mornings that weren't haunted by the sound of gunfire or the fear that someone might take a shot at my back. I got 3 months. Then Vivian Blackthorn made it her personal crusade to end that peace. My first run-in with Vivian was at her so-called orientation for new homeowners. She rolled in driving a pearl-white Bentley, diamonds flashing, clipboard in hand. Sterling Hawthorne, she said, like reading a name off a most wanted list. She sneered about how I'd acquired the property, federal auction, no background check, no community approval, no references. She made it sound like I'd snuck in at midnight instead of signing paperwork that could have choked a hippo. But I didn't bite. I learned long ago sometimes it's smarter to let your enemy overplay their hand. Folks in the room watched like deer at the edge of a clearing. Nobody wanted to cross Vivian, but nobody looked all that comfortable either. She started rattling off her credentials: highest property values, strict landscaping codes, types of people suitable for the community. That last part, types of people, just hung there thick as smoke. I've heard threats dressed up prettier, but not many. That night I did my homework. 7 years at the helm, Vivian had run Cascade Heights like a little kingdom. Property values were up. Amenities were polished. Everything looked perfect on paper. But dig a little deeper. 12 families gone in 7 years, average of 16 years each in their homes, suddenly packing up after a wave of HOA violations and fines. The Weatherbees were the latest. 23 years on the lake, then their dock expanded 18 inches back in the 90s before Vivian suddenly illegal. Fines started small, then ballooned failure to respect authority, frivolous challenges creating discord. Their retirement savings were swallowed up fighting citations that changed with Vivian's mood. Finally, they sold out at a loss just to escape. The buyer was a shell company, Cascade Development Partners, who raised the house and left an empty lot. Tracing those companies, I ended up at Meridian Holdings International, a front for gray market real estate grabs. And according to my old intel contacts, foreign money laundering. These development firms were holding waterfronts empty, prepping them as safe houses for folks who'd rather stay off Uncle Sam's radar. Yeah, that's right, not just greed, but national security risk. And then there was Robert Castellano, a widower who put in a tiny memorial garden for his late wife, no permission slip. The HOA hit him with unauthorized religious displays and stacked up $47,000 in fines. He lost his home. Margaret Thornfield, 80-something, a maritime historian with a dock the state wanted preserved, was hounded so hard Vivian even called Adult Protective Services on her. It broke her. But Vivian's mistake was thinking her local cop friends would just take her word when she labeled me a terrorist. She'd gone as far as pulling pieces of my service record, big federal no-no, by the way. She was pushing cops to treat me like a national threat. She even misrepresented my radio gear as illegal surveillance. But Chief Morrison, he ran my name, which triggered a domino effect, federal agencies lighting up his phone. Within minutes, the whole thing went from local drama to a full-blown federal scene. Standing in my living room, watching those officers realize they'd been played. There's a moment you can see in their eyes when they know this is way above their pay grade. Sergeant Rodriguez, bless him, tried to get Vivian to step outside and talk it through, but she was too far gone. "There's nothing to discuss," she snapped, waving her phone with evidence. But her hands shook. When I quietly asked if she was familiar with Title 18, Section 1001, lying to federal agents, she went sheet white. I handed Rodriguez my folder, military records, property deeds, asset forfeiture paperwork. The works. After a quick read, Rodriguez apologized on record, no less. "Captain Hawthorne, it seems we've been misled." Vivian's phone dropped to the floor with a clatter. She tried to argue, but it was no use. The sergeant's radio was already crackling dispatch, calling him to headquarters on a priority. Not a minute later, my Coast Guard emergency radio squawked. "Sector Buffalo, we've received reports of a potential security incident." Commander Drummond herself was on the line. When I responded with a status report, false alarm, local law, no threat, she told me federal assets were inbound anyway, just in case. The color drained out of Vivian's face as the thump of helicopters and the sight of black SUVs barreling down my gravel drive hammered home that her game was up. I told her, calm as could be, "You came after a federal agent's home thinking nobody'd fight back, but you never understood what you were up against." That's when the door opened and Agent Drummond stepped in, flanked by her team, scanning the room with those seen it all eyes. She got the rundown fast. My documentation, the chain of shell companies, the evidence of systematic harassment and forced sales. Rodriguez looked at Vivian like he pitied her. Drummond explained the gravity false terrorism reports, civil rights violations, classified data leaks. Then Agent Fitzgerald, her partner, started laying out the real twist. This isn't just a local abuse case. This is an international property grab with national security implications. I'd mapped it all, every empty lot, every shell company, every payment, the foreign money trail, the pattern-matched operations I'd seen in my service deep water access sightlines to shipping lanes, properties primed not for homes but for covert ops. The moment Drummond saw my charts, she knew we were looking at the tip of something massive. The room was silent as Drummond confronted Vivian with the bank records, $600,000 traced to her accounts, all tied to targeted harassment campaigns. Vivian could barely get the words out, finally asking for her lawyer as more agents pulled up outside. And then, right as the local news crew showed up, Operation Maritime Shield kicked into high gear. The feds had been tracking Meridian Holdings for months. My evidence filled in the gaps. Arrests came fast. Vivian, the board, several consultants, even 3 foreign nationals using fake names. The Weatherbys got a call from the FBI promising their home back and compensation for their losses. Robert Castellano was offered his property and garden fully restored. Margaret Thornfield's historic dock was not only preserved but nominated for the National Register of Historic Places. One by one, families returned. Cascade Heights was reborn. Vivian got 15 years in federal prison. Her cronies got their share. And the HOA was dissolved by court order. Property values soared once the corruption was gone. And the navigation beacon became a symbol: no more predators hiding behind local authority. The investigation spread across 12 states, over $40 million in stolen homes recovered, and new laws passed so it couldn't happen again. Even Chief Morrison called me months later asking if I'd help them root out corruption for good. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now every morning I drink my coffee watching the sunrise over Cascade Bay, knowing those families are safe and nobody's ever getting run off their land by a corrupt HOA again, at least not on my watch. The beacon still shines, the water's peaceful, and if there's one lesson here, it's this: sometimes the worst accusations bring the best kind of justice. Vivian thought she could win with fear and power. What she got was a front row seat to how the law really works when you target the wrong person. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Ever face down a local tyrant or see your own community threatened by the folks in charge? Drop your story or your thoughts down below. Justice isn't just a word, it's a fight. And sometimes all it takes is one person standing up and saying, "Not today." Hit subscribe, share your story, and let's make sure no one else gets pushed off their land ever again.